right now. As rescuers search through the wreckage of what was once entire neighborhoods, the most powerful hurricane ever to strike Jamaica has left a trail of devastation that scientists are calling beyond catastrophic. 185-mile-per-hour winds, a central pressure so low it rivals the most intense hurricanes in recorded history. Over 60 lives lost. And while Jamaica struggles to count the dead and displaced, this monster is already carving a path toward Cuba, still a major hurricane, still deadly and moving fast. This is Hurricane Melissa, and the nightmare is far from over. Hurricane Melissa made direct landfall near New Hope, Westmoreland Parish, Jamaica on October 28, 2025, slamming into the southwestern coast with maximum sustained winds of 185 miles per hour. A Category 5 monster. The strongest hurricane ever recorded to make landfall on the island. Ever. And the images coming out of Jamaica are nothing short of apocalyptic. Entire communities obliterated. Homes collapsed into piles of splintered wood and twisted metal. Floodwaters rising so fast that families had minutes, not hours, to escape. NASA satellite imagery shows massive swaths of Jamaica's forests stripped bare, mountainsides scarred by landslides, and coastal settlements completely submerged beneath storm surge and rain-driven floods. But here's what makes this truly alarming. This storm didn't just break records, it shattered them. Melissa's central pressure dropped to approximately 892 millibars at landfall. That's the same intensity as the catastrophic 1935 Labor Day hurricane that killed over 400 people in the Florida Keys. And while Melissa was tearing Jamaica apart, it was dumping between 15 and 30 inches of rain across the island, with some areas receiving nearly 40 inches. That's more than 3 feet of water in a matter of hours. Jamaica's Prime Minister declared the entire country a disaster area within hours of landfall. And as rescue teams struggle to reach cut-off communities, the storm hasn't stopped moving. It's barreling toward Cuba, and it's still a major hurricane. Hurricane Melissa wasn't just powerful, it was a textbook example of rapid intensification, gone to the absolute extreme. And the science behind what happened should terrify anyone living in the Caribbean. The storm formed in the Western Caribbean around October 21st. Within days, it began feeding on abnormally warm sea surface temperatures, the kind of oceanic heat content that acts like rocket fuel for tropical cyclones. Just 6 days after formation, Melissa had exploded from a tropical storm into a Category 5 hurricane, with winds near 185 miles per hour and a central pressure bottoming out at 892 millibars. Meteorologists use a term for this: rapid intensification. It's when a hurricane's maximum sustained winds increase by at least 35 miles per hour in 24 hours. Melissa exceeded that threshold multiple times. This kind of explosive strengthening leaves almost no time for preparation, no time for proper evacuations, no time to secure critical infrastructure. And when a storm this intense approaches land, the physics become brutal. The extreme low pressure at the center creates a vacuum effect, sucking ocean water upward and outward in a devastating storm surge. Melissa's surge reached 15 to 20 feet in some coastal areas of Jamaica, crashing over seawalls and flooding entire neighborhoods in minutes. Then there's the rainfall. Hurricanes this powerful don't just bring wind, they carry immense amounts of moisture. Melissa's slow forward speed over Jamaica meant the island was subjected to torrential rainfall for hours, 15 to 30 inches across most of the affected areas. Look, rainfall totals: 15 to 30 inches widespread across Jamaica, with isolated maximum amounts near 40 inches. That volume of water in such a short time overwhelms any drainage system, triggers catastrophic flash flooding, and destabilizes hillsides already saturated from previous storms. Storm surge, estimated at 15 to 20 feet along Jamaica's southwestern coast. That's a wall of seawater tall enough to completely submerge single-story buildings and push miles inland through low-lying areas. Forward speed during landfall, approximately 15 miles per hour, slow enough that the destructive core of the hurricane lingered over Jamaica for hours, maximizing exposure to extreme winds and rainfall. Jamaica was under a hurricane warning with evacuation orders for coastal and flood-prone areas. But numbers on a screen don't capture what this means for the people living in the shadow of this threat. Over 2.8 million people call Jamaica home. And when Hurricane Melissa made landfall, every single one of them was in danger. The hardest-hit parishes, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, St. James, Hanover, and Trelawney, are home to hundreds of thousands of residents. Coastal fishing villages, agricultural communities, tourist destinations, major towns and cities, all directly in the path of a Category 5 hurricane. Within hours of landfall, the scale of human tragedy began to emerge. At least 45 to 54 people confirmed dead across Jamaica, over 90 injured, 15 missing. And those numbers, released in the days immediately following the storm, are almost certainly underestimates. Remote communities remained cut off for days. Search and rescue teams couldn't reach mountainous areas where landslides buried entire hillsides. More than 6,000 people were displaced in the first 24 hours alone. 800 emergency shelters were activated nationwide as families fled rising floodwaters and collapsing homes. But as the full scope of destruction became clear, that displacement number skyrocketed. Updated humanitarian reports now indicate around 90,000 people displaced, with over 1,300 still sheltering weeks later because their homes are uninhabitable. Destroyed, gone. Jamaica's critical infrastructure took a direct hit. Hospitals damaged or destroyed, forcing medical evacuations and overwhelming the facilities that remained operational. About 1/3 of the country lost electrical power, 530,000 customers in the dark. Some parishes almost completely cut off from the national grid. Water systems failed, roads washed out, bridges collapsed, telecommunications networks went silent across the western half of the island. And for those hoping this will simply calm down, the experts have bad news, because Melissa wasn't finished. After devastating Jamaica, the storm tracked northwest, still a major hurricane, directly toward Cuba's eastern provinces. 700,000 Cubans were ordered to evacuate as Melissa closed in. Scientists and meteorologists watching Melissa's approach weren't mincing words. This was a historic, catastrophic event in the making. The National Hurricane Center issued stark warnings in the hours before landfall. Catastrophic wind damage expected, life-threatening storm surge, devastating flash flooding and mudslides likely. The World Meteorological Organization described Melissa as a Category 5 hurricane with nearly 300 km/h winds, the kind of intensity that tests the absolute limits of what communities can survive. AccuWeather senior meteorologists called the Jamaica landfall a life-threatening catastrophe. And they were right. The combination of extreme winds, torrential rainfall, and storm surge created what disaster experts call a compound event. Multiple hazards hitting simultaneously, each amplifying the others. But perhaps the most chilling expert assessment came from climate attribution scientists. Researchers with World Weather Attribution conducted rapid analysis in the weeks following Melissa's landfall. Their conclusion: human-driven climate change likely increased the storm's intensity and rainfall. Warmer ocean temperatures, elevated by decades of greenhouse gas emissions, provided the energy that fueled Melissa's rapid intensification to Category 5 strength. The report's title says it all: Climate Change Enhanced Intensity of Hurricane Melissa, Testing Limits of Adaptation in Jamaica and Eastern Cuba. Translation: we're now seeing storms so powerful that even well-prepared communities struggle to survive them. Because what the data is showing now suggests something even more troubling. Hurricane Melissa didn't just appear out of nowhere. It followed a terrifying pattern of rapid intensification that left forecasters racing to update warnings. The tropical disturbance in the Western Caribbean, it had organized into Tropical Storm Melissa. Then the acceleration began. Over the next 48 hours, Melissa underwent explosive strengthening, jumping from tropical storm status to Category 5 in just 2 days. Wind speeds increased by over 100 miles per hour in less than 48 hours. That's not normal hurricane behavior. That's a system feeding on exceptional oceanic heat and atmospheric conditions ideal for rapid intensification. Satellite imagery captured the evolution in real time. A ragged tropical storm with an ill-defined center suddenly developing a tight, symmetric core. A clear eye forming and sharpening, deep convection wrapping tightly around the center, all classic signs of a hurricane about to explode in intensity. The last time Jamaica faced a storm of this magnitude was 1988, Hurricane Gilbert. Hurricane Melissa made landfall on Cuba's southeastern coast, east of Chivirico, in Santiago de Cuba province, as a Category 3 major hurricane, still packing winds over 115 miles per hour, still extremely dangerous. Cuban civil defense authorities had already evacuated approximately 700,000 people from at-risk areas across eastern Cuba. Shelters were activated. Emergency services positioned. The government's National Forecast Center issued continuous updates as Melissa approached, warning of life-threatening storm surge, devastating winds, and flooding rainfall. And Cuba's response likely saved countless lives. Unlike Jamaica, where the storm struck at near-peak Category 5 intensity, Cuba had more advance warning and implemented massive preventive evacuations. No storm-related fatalities were reported by Cuban authorities in the immediate aftermath, a testament to aggressive early action. But make no mistake, the damage is extensive. Widespread flooding in Santiago de Cuba, infrastructure damaged, power outages, debris-choked streets, and as Melissa weakened while crossing Cuba, it continued tracking northwest toward the Bahamas and eventually near Bermuda as a still dangerous hurricane-force system. But the real question everyone is asking, in the immediate term, Melissa continued weakening as it moved over Cuba and into the central Atlantic, transitioned into a hurricane-force extratropical cyclone. The disaster is far from over. The real threats now are secondary and long-term. Leptospirosis, a deadly bacterial disease spread through contaminated floodwater and rodent urine, has already emerged as a major health crisis in Jamaica. At least 6 deaths confirmed by late November. Standing water, damaged sanitation systems, and displaced populations create ideal conditions for waterborne disease outbreaks. Cholera, typhoid, and dengue fever are all elevated risks in the weeks and months ahead. Infrastructure remains fragile. With power grids damaged, water systems contaminated, and roads impassable, even normal seasonal rainfall can trigger new landslides and flooding in already saturated areas. Jamaica was still recovering from Hurricane Beryl 15 months earlier, when Melissa struck, and compounding vulnerabilities and straining resources. And then there's the broader threat. Climate change is making rapid intensification events like Melissa more likely. Warmer oceans, more atmospheric moisture, conditions that favor explosive hurricane development. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this so dangerous. Hurricane Melissa has dissipated as a tropical system, but the story is nowhere near finished. Across Jamaica, 90,000 people remain displaced. Over 1,000 are still living in emergency shelters weeks after landfall because they have no homes to return to. Critical health facilities remain damaged or destroyed, forcing patients into overcrowded hospitals in less affected regions. About 1/3 of the country is still without reliable electricity. Water systems are compromised, and with each passing day, the risk of disease outbreak grows. In Cuba, recovery teams are still assessing the full scope of damage across Santiago de Cuba province. In Haiti and the Dominican Republic, dozens of flood and landslide victims are still being accounted for. Remote communities cut off by destroyed roads and bridges. The World Weather Attribution Study's conclusion is unambiguous. Climate change made Melissa worse. And storms like this, rapid intensifiers that explode from tropical storm to Category 5 in 48 hours, are exactly the kind of event that climate models predict will become more common. The system may be gone, but the conditions that created it are still here, still building, still waiting. The Caribbean will be rebuilding for years. The death toll may still rise, and the next hurricane season is just months away. This isn't a story with an ending. This is a warning. Stay informed, stay prepared, and never underestimate the power of a rapidly intensifying hurricane.